This message is intended as a reminder that we are not licensed professionals, not psychiatrists or psychologists. If you have a serious problem, please seek professional help. The National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Hearing all these letters read aloud by damsels not in distress. Host came to impress. Bitch, check your DMs. This is hot off the press.
Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Welcome to the second episode of Damsels in the DMs.
Say hi to Chloe's cat in the background.
3 participants.
You can see its tail like in the headboard.
I feel like my head looks large. Like I feel like I just sit maybe closer to the camera than other people. I feel like this on my work calls too, and I'm like, are you guys just not telling me my head is huge, or am I just sitting too close? And I think it's
or you have like body dysmorphia because your head looks very normal.
But I feel like I sit like close. I'm like, hey guys.
That's close. You weren't close before.
I'm just like heavy breathing. Like, so what have you been up to during quarantine?
Well, I was talking a lot about my sock tie-dyeing project, as you know, and I finally did it. So that was a big moment for me. I finally tie-dyed the socks. But yeah, other than that, tie-dyeing my socks, binged Mrs. America, loved Mrs. America.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you know, there's a lot going on in the world. So it's a little hard to be totally happy and going on with your normal routine when you know so many people are suffering and so much is happening. So I can't be protesting because my parents, I'm not going to reveal their age, but we'll just say they're in the at-risk population. I think protesting is such an amazing way of freedom of speech that we have. I remember when Trump was elected, I went and protested on the 405 freeway. And that was such an amazing experience being with like-minded people, all sharing the same belief. So I hope that that's how people are feeling and that the momentum that they're gaining from all of this is happening. I hope that they're having the same experience that I had. And I'm just so grateful for everybody who's really risking their lives at this point to protest for what they believe in.
Yeah, I think that this was an absolutely heinous crime that continues to happen in America and needs justice. And I appreciate everyone speaking out for it. I think that we put the link to donate on the Damsels in the DMs Instagram. So if anyone wants to donate, they can find it there.
I watched Dear White People last night, which was really great, and I highly recommend it. Also, The Hate U Give is another really great film that people can be watching. Some books that I love, Americana is an amazing book, and also American Marriage. Really recommend listening or watching to any of those because I think it's really important to check your privilege right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well put.
Well, as we mentioned, you know, it is a little bit weird to be talking about dating at a time like this. However, you have been continuing your online dating, correct?
I have, yes. So I have continued to do online dating, and I was talking to someone for a few weeks, and it was going at what I thought was going pretty well. But I think that anyone listening to this will be like, this bitch didn't even take her own advice from me. To which I would say, correct, I did not. No, I think, you know, I think I was upset about it for a day or two last week, and I'm feeling better about it now because it was kind of a short-lived thing. But I want to say that basically, this guy and I, you know, we were FaceTiming and doing online dating. We decided to meet up. We hung out for a few times, and yeah, I don't want to say that it was all one-sided. I think I was reciprocating things that he was saying to me. It went a little fast. I'll say that.
Okay.
It was very, you know, by the second date, we were kind of already having these conversations of like, you know, not wanting to talk to anyone else. And as much as I was kind of trying to hold back on that, yeah, it just happened. It happened pretty fast. And you know, I think when things happen that fast, you need to kind of take a step back from it and wonder if it's a little too good to be true, because frankly, like no one can really know you after a couple weeks. And yeah, and I will just say it didn't end favorably. I think that there were some actions of his that weren't matching up to the words that he was saying that frankly I was beating myself up a little bit about because I felt like I should have caught them earlier on. But at the end of the day, I was just believing what someone was saying to me, which is, wow, what a crazy concept, huh?
Yeah.
But I'd love to talk about this a little bit more with Sabrina when she comes on.
It's really interesting you say that. And Malcolm Gladwell, he writes a book about how like humans' instinct is just to trust right away.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to unlearn that behavior of just being so trusting of people right away.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much shit on this guy, but looking back, there were a lot of red flags that I should have picked up.
Drag him.
Like every ex was crazy. He got
They're never crazy. It's never them. I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably yelling into this microphone. It's just passion.
When I thought back on the stories he told, I thought to myself, oh God, that poor girl. Okay, he would do this annoying thing with his phone where he would look at his phone and have some sort of reaction to it. Like he was over here the one day and started like laughing hilariously at his phone, but then never showed me what was on the phone.
No.
Which like,
why is he having such an intense reaction then? Have you heard of acting, pal?
I guess it's just a funny video. So yeah, and like yeah, so then one night he got it.
Why wouldn't he show you then if it was a funny video?
He wanted me to be like, oh, what's that? But that's not my style.
I think it's a funny video.
Yeah. So one night he got a text and he scoffed and was like, ugh. And I was like, what is it? Like, what's going on? And he's like, this girl just texted me. She's so crazy. If she had my address, she would just show up. And, now that she's texting me and I don't answer, I'm going to get an Instagram message. And at the time, I mean, I don't really know. That was a very odd thing to say.
Sounds like a narcissist. He probably texted this girl.
Very odd. Well, she was probably just trying to get an answer out of him. Like I had to try to do at the end when he was trying to ghost me. Whatever. We'll get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, those were red flags. But it's like I was kind of swept up in the moment and what was being said to me, and like trying to consider, oh, is this like a genuine connection or not? And I kind of ignored those. And I think hindsight's 2020, and looking back, there are things I wish I would have done differently, but I'm also not going to consider myself crazy for believing some things that someone was telling me. So yeah.
Well, speaking of establishing intimacy in quarantine, I think that I have found the key to establishing intimacy.
Okay.
So Brian and I, getting really hot and heavy, we're playing Uno on our phones. And, it's intimate, all right. It really establishes some healthy competition. And we can now play as a couple against other people. I guess they're people, maybe they're robots, I don't know. But we've been playing 2-on-2 against some names. To give you some example: Motor Mouth, Grinds My Gears, King Sultan, and Face of the Andes. Those are some of our competitors.
As you know, I'm extremely excited about the guest that we're going to have on today.
Yes.
She's one of my favorite comedians in the LA area, and her tweets are hilarious.
She's so funny. I didn't know about her until you told me. Weirdly enough, I feel like I've seen more comedy in New York than I have in LA. But since you were talking to me about her, I am dying at her tweets and her podcast and her stand-up comedy. She's so funny.
I think when we started this podcast, she was probably one of the first names that I mentioned that I wanted.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
I was so excited that she agreed to come on. Her name is Dana Donnelly, and she is an actress, a comedian. She just started her own podcast with her sister called Young Old, and she's just hilarious all around. I feel like the tweets that she sends are very funny, very relatable when it comes to dating, when it comes to social media stalking, when it comes to stalking your exes. I mean, she's just great. I'm so excited to have her on, and yeah.
Yay, so let's talk to Dana.
All right, we are so excited to welcome Dana Donnelly to the podcast.
Yay!
Yes, Dana is an actress and comedian in LA. She also hosts her own show, Funneling Us. Is that right?
Funnelingus.
And you just recently started a podcast with your sister called Young Old, right?
Yeah.
Which we're loving and you guys should check out. But I actually saw Dana at a UCB open mic, and yeah, you were just amazing. What's so great about the UCB open mics is like it's like 12 other comedians that are about to go up and not listening to a word you say. So it's a really tough crowd and it really strengthens your stand-up.
That's a brutal mic. Like that mic on a bad day will make you want to quit stand-up. Like it's so bad.
But someone hosts that open mic that is a familiar face to us that Dana is currently dating and has had on her podcast.
And I was just curious, like, have you had to adjust your comedy since being in a relationship, or basically you just use the same jokes?
Because so many of my jokes are jokes written with premises that are based on like previous experiences, I haven't really had to change that much stuff. I think it's like also I do a little bit of a character on stage. Like I'm not like full, like I don't talk like how I talk. And I do very like structured written one-liners. And so it hasn't really affected like what I talk about in my stand-up that much yet. But like I'm sure, you know, after all of this, like what I will have to like mine from will be really different.
I feel like, you know, doing stand-up and, you know, your tweets are so funny too. And even on this podcast, you know, I was like talking to Lauren, I'm like, it's hard to be dating and doing this podcast and like telling jokes about men that like not everyone is going to get. So you're dating Robert, and I feel like that's such a good match because he knows that you're joking. It's like he's in that world and he knows that like you're not being serious. And I feel like some guys would look at that and maybe be insecure and kind of crazy, like, oh my gosh, she does this. It's like, no, it's a fucking joke, man. Like,
no, it is like so nice to be dating a comedian who like also just understands why, you know, everything just has to be the funniest version of what it is. Because I think like other guys that I've dated haven't been as understanding even before I like had a platform, which is like so funny to think about. Like that there were guys who were mad at me for tweeting about them when I had like 500 followers. I'm like, why are you worried about this?
One thing I love, I feel like you get vulnerable super easily, especially on your podcast when you were talking about how you were bullied on Reddit and how your boyfriend, which I loved, was turning each thing that somebody said about you that you were maybe offended by and so like into a positive. I'd love if you could talk about that a little bit.
Being able to open up to someone is like the most important thing. Like I think there are so many people who like I probably wouldn't have even been able to like talk about like the like Red Scare thread or whatever with, because I just like wouldn't want to get into it or like wouldn't want to like go there, I guess.
Yeah, do you want to talk actually, since I didn't explain it, about what the Reddit thread was?
Basically it was just like a bunch of like weird guys talking about like saying just like mean things about like me and my body and whatever, but it was like pretty funny. It's just really interesting to see how like men just get obsessed with random girls online and like love to hate them. Like they probably all of those guys know more about me than like any like girl who thinks I'm funny, you know. And it's just like such a fun, like a weird, bizarre like culture of like guys. And I, you know, there's a lot of other girls on Twitter who talk about this, but like these guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And they have nothing else to do. I loved your one. And I want to talk about this because, like, it's like, do you ever regret what you say? Because I don't feel like you should. Like, there was the one that you had that was, like, it was something about, like, a guy will, like, have his grandmother have died, like, 12 years ago and be like, oh, I can't open up and be vulnerable. And everyone was like, grandmother's dying isn't funny. It's like, that was obviously not the point. And
Right.
it was so funny. I think you posted on Instagram, you're like, overall, this was just not well received.
Like people, like guys make fun of, guys are always like saying like, oh, girls are so sensitive, like da da da. But it's like, okay, like so many girls on the internet get like, you know, like sorry to say, but like rape and like death threats like every single day, and like they don't care. Like people care obviously, but like just like the amount that guys actually are so oversensitive and like so ego driven is just like so just truly crazy to realize.
No, for sure. I feel like you do such a good job. At least externally, you do a great job handling it. Like, I feel like I'd be in therapy every week. Like, oh my God, this is what this person said to me. But like, yeah, they're just like trolls and they have nothing else better to do with their lives than to like harass you.
Just like truly remembering that, like, not to be like annoying, but like it's just like haters make you famous or whatever. Like the only reason, like every time I've gotten like big jumps of followers, it's been because someone's been really mean to me and it starts a lot of like engagement. Like that's like it, you know? Like people like love to watch a spectacle. These weird men know so much.
It's weird. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, and also in the sense that a lot of it was comparing you to your sister who's younger than you, which I feel like has to be the creepiest thing.
I mean, a lot of that I think I bring on, like, not to victim blame myself, but like I bring a lot of that on myself because it's like that's like a big bit and like joke that I think is funny to make, and it's like just like a running joke like in my family and it has been like my whole life. So like obviously, you know, I have like started those comparisons, but yeah, just like the way that like, I mean, again, and also it started as a joke because people were making the comparisons without me asking it, or without me starting it. But yeah, like it just is very weird to realize also how many men on the internet are just like so willing to die on the hill that like it's fine to want to fuck like a 16-year-old girl.
Watch the Epstein documentary. It'll become real believable real quick.
Oh, it's scary.
But so you're living with your sister right now?
Yeah, I mean, she went and visited my mom.
Okay.
But yeah, normally she's here.
Your mom is so cute when you have her on the podcast and you told her that didn't you say that he was starting an OnlyFans or something? My mom wouldn't even know what that was. Like, that's just like how hip and cool your mom is.
Well, we explained it to her. She
okay.
also like follows us on social media, and I think it actually really helps her. Like,
really?
Like it helps her be more understanding and supportive because it's like she's seeing, like she's just like seeing people my age joke about things that she doesn't really have any like context for, and I think it is helpful.
It's amazing that she's like supporting the movement with you, because I know you've been really involved in the movement, if you want to talk about that a little bit, and like how your mom has been supporting you, because I feel like we're all engaging with our parents now in these kinds of conversations. And like, I don't know, at least for a lot of us, like we used to make excuses because they're from a different generation, et cetera. And now you can no longer make the excuse for them, or at least we're accepting that we can't. So I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on like engaging your mom in your work.
I think it's like so interesting because my mom grew up, she moved from like to America from the Philippines when she was 6. And I think she encountered just like so much like blatant anti-Asian racism because she like went to an all-white school and stuff in America. But in a way that like didn't necessarily like make her not racist or make it so that like she wasn't also engaged in like ideas that like were in support of like white supremacy. And like her parents too, I think like they were in the Philippines under American occupation, and they like really do like buy into like a lot of like white savior stuff. And it's like obviously really hard like as a non-Black person of color to like try to like get people who have encountered racism against them their whole lives that they are also complicit in upholding like a racist system. And it's like really difficult to like talk to people, like to talk to like I have not talked to my grandparents about like Black Lives Matter because I just feel like it's like the kind of thing where it's like when a white person, like whenever a white person like has tried to talk to me about like privilege or things like that, like I don't take it well because I'm like, well, who are you to like talk to me about this? And in that same way, I have a hard time like talking to my grandparents about it. But I've like just been really grateful that my mom has been very like educating herself about like the history of policing and like anti-Black sentiment in America, and like she's done a lot of like the work on her own, and like has like didn't really make it so that I had to talk to her about it, which I'm like just so grateful about and for.
One quote that I heard in White Fragility that I really loved was, One of the most potent ways white supremacy is disseminated is through media representations who have found a profound impact on how we see the world. Those who write and direct films are our cultural narrators. The stories they tell shape our worldviews. So I feel like the more as artists we can be doing in amplifying those voices and creating is so important right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the main reasons that I like was inspired to become a comedy writer, was just like not seeing any people like me in TV really. But it's like, it's so interesting too, but like as like comedians or comedic performers or whatever, to like be able to pivot the use of like your platform and your art to like something that like means something or is doing something bigger.
And I feel like, and you've stepped up to do this, like there's definitely a responsibility to do that when you have such a large platform, you know?
I literally just like the idea that I have like this platform on which I could be like spreading information and like amplifying voices, and like not doing that is like so bizarre to me. And like I see so many people with platforms that like aren't really utilizing them, like are just like kind of doing the bare minimum, and it's really frustrating because it's like, okay, at some point if you have like 100,000 followers, it's like, okay, like I've lost a ton of followers since I started.
Have you
like
really?
Yeah, I've lost, yeah, I think I must have lost like almost like close to 700 because I've gained, and like I'm still like just going down like crazy. And it's like, I obviously don't care.
That's really sad.
I think it's like a bunch of people who like, it's like maybe it's not even that they don't care or don't agree. It's like they just like followed me for jokes and like don't appreciate the pivot of a platform. But it's like, also, if you're the kind of person who like only wants to see jokes right now, I'm like, who are you? Like, what kind of like crazy person is trying to like distance themselves from like what's going on in the world in search of like light entertainment? It's like, who's that person? Like, so then I'm like, well, I don't know. There's nothing I can do. But like, again, yeah, people who like have huge platforms and like aren't retweeting a lot because they're like worried about losing followers. It's like, what's the point of having a platform?
Well, now that we have discussed how you've been using your platform, I would also love to talk about how you also have used your platform in sort of normalizing stalking your exes, which kind of leads us to the letter that we got this week. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. Dear Damsels, a bit before quarantine started, my boyfriend and I broke up, and it's just been really hard since. I was coping by keeping myself busy and seeing my friends, but since quarantine hit, I found it harder and harder to keep myself from spiraling. I especially can't seem to stop stalking him on his new social media and think that he has started to see someone new. I feel so creepy about it, but I find myself daily checking his Instagram and watching this new girl's Instagram stories as well. I know it's so not healthy, but I just don't know how to stop when there's really nothing else to do with my time. Do you have advice on how I can stop this self-destructive behavior and figure out some healthier ways to cope? Any advice would be helpful. Sincerely, let's talk Stalker.
Well, I have thoughts, but I don't know if anyone else wants to go first.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, I guess I'll tell the story real quick. With my most recent ex, what happened was, like, this was like back in, I've just moved here from DC like last June, and we were dating when I moved out here. And then we broke up, and he just didn't want to be out here, which was fine. He's allowed to be wrong. And I went back at the end of October. We kind of rekindled things. You know, he was saying that he was still in love with me, blah, blah, blah. But then it just ended up like it just was not going to work out. So then I came back in December, and somewhat of a questionable timeline here. It seems like it happened within the span of a month. He had already started seeing someone new. So what I did, like when I actually like I was flying back to LAX, and I remember this very vividly, blocked him, I blocked her. Like I was like, I'm going to go over this threshold and just never look at them again. And then my crazy female brain was like, but I could get on an incognito browser in Google and still get on Instagram. But that's all to say, yes, that sounds really crazy, but I think I tried to cut myself off from it too early. And I was actually like talking to my therapist about this. She's like, you love like a harm reduction model when it comes to like drug use. It's like, and what that means is kind of meeting someone where they're at and not expecting them to go cold turkey before they're ready, and like understanding that they're going to have relapses. And I think I was like way too hard on myself in that, like, I'm just going to cut myself off from this and never look again, because that just wasn't a realistic expectation for me.
I literally, like, the second that you block someone, you're going to check their shit so much fucking more than you did before that.
Yeah.
But I like totally agree. I think it's like, it's not crazy what you did at all, because it's like, that's something we all do. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't obsessively like stalk their ex's social media.
No, I
Like,
mean,
that's like a totally foreign concept to me. Like, I've never, even guys that I like, you know, have gone on a couple dates with, I'll probably like be checking their social media for another couple months after we like stop hooking up. Like, that's just like how I am. Like, I don't know. Like, why is that? I get it's like never healthy. It's never productive. Like that, and I can acknowledge both of those things, but it's like, I don't necessarily think it's like so harmful. And I also don't think it's like uncommon at all.
yeah. I think my issue is and like, this is something my therapist, like, she's like, put a time limit on it, because I snoop to the point where I hurt my own feelings. Like, I'm on like the fucking new girl's friend's Venmo fucking looking at shit, and I'm like,
Oh, the
how did I
Venmo is
get-
the best place to stalk.
Venmo is where you can find some
Well,
shit.
Venmo is like where I've found out who like everyone was dating before me. That's like the
Yeah.
easiest way to like get
Mm.
names of like the girls that guys dated before you.
And it's a good way to check timelines too. Like, I remember my ex was like, oh, me and my ex before you, like, we broke up like at this time. And I'm like, well, why are y'all Venmoing each other 3 months later then? And that's when it came out that they had like, you know, they had kind of gotten back together like we had. So you can definitely fact check a lot on Venmo.
Oh yeah. No, it's like a really good stalking tool. But yeah, again, like, it's like, I don't know. And also I think the letter is so interesting because like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine going through a breakup during quarantine, like, knock on wood, but like, I just don't understand. Like, that sounds like the most brutal, hardest thing in the world. Like, because again, like, the only way that I ever get over people is to like date new people, which is like not good. I don't recommend that.
Me,
But,
yep, recovered
yeah.
serial dater. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a serial monogamist. That's just like kind of how I am. But it's like, that's why to me, like, yeah, having a breakup in quarantine, I feel so bad for anyone who's like going through that. That just sounds like truly one of the worst like situations you could possibly be in.
It's been a little while for me since I've like been in the social media stalking game of the exes, only because I've been in a relationship for 5 years. But at a certain point, doesn't their content like stop being interesting? Like, I don't know, like, do guys post that much? I guess it depends on the guy, but I would think that it wouldn't be that great.
So they don't, but it's all about like looking for the one time when there is like a clue. And then it's like occasionally there's like a clue, and then the clue gives you other things to stalk. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, so one of my exes, like, when we first broke up, he started posting Instagram stories, which he never did while we were together. And I like know he was posting Instagram stories, so I'd look at them. Like, that was like obviously what he was doing. But like through that, like one time he posted a picture of like this one girl, and then like through that girl I could like see, and he like had started hanging out with friends, and then I just like would watch all of their stories.
And would you be watching it from your account or from like
I would go on an Instagram story viewer. I would use storiesigg.com, and you can literally type in any public Instagram account and you can watch the stories on.
Don't tell me this. Don't tell me this shit.
Yeah, I don't want to spread harmful information. I don't want to label addicts, but like yeah, like that's literally what I did for months after I broke up with this one guy that I think we broke up in October of 2018, and I was fucking like just like watching the stories of his friends until, you know, fucking like February of 2019. And by that point I was already dating someone new, and I was like in like a semi-serious relationship with someone new.
Are they posting the stories to, and this could be controversial, are they posting the stories to make you jealous, or because like the girl wants them to be posting the stories?
Well,
what do you think is the strategy?
I think, in my specific situation, it was like literally a week after we broke up, and I think he was posting them in like a look, I'm having fun way, and that's like whatever. But I think it's a mix of like reasons why people post a lot after a breakup. I think it's like to let people know that they're single. Like that's like a huge reason to post Instagram stories, is to like just let people know that you're single, and then like also to let the person that you're not with anymore know that you're like fine without them.
A lot of girls, I don't use that strategy anymore, because it's like, I just know that like I'll start posting and like boasting like my life, even though I like probably go home and cry at night. Like, it's like, oh, but look at me doing this during the day, and like I overdo it for people to see it. So I just end up like removing the person altogether just because I think,
Oh, if I ever got single again, you better believe there'd be like photography sessions, like well thought out posts. Yeah, please.
I was gonna say, does anyone have like embarrassing stories about things that they've done while stalking? Because I remember my first ex, when we started dating in college, I got on his ex-girlfriend's Instagram, and I was in these archives. I was in some of the first of her Instagram posts, and the double tap happened by accident.
Oh,
And
that's happened to me.
I took it away really quick. And I like to think if you take it away very quick, it maybe doesn't register in the system. This was like a couple years ago too.
So technically, if she didn't have Instagram notifications on and you liked, it wouldn't have shown up.
Yeah.
But if she did have notifications on, then she would have received a push notification.
Well,
I feel like we all like to believe this, though, just like we all like to believe that we had coronavirus and we all have the antibodies, but we were asymptomatic.
Mhm.
Are we right? Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not.
It never got brought up to me, so I'm grateful for that. But I'm curious if you guys have ever done anything like that.
I've always been like so careful. Like I do like scroll. I'm so careful. I'm sure I've accidentally liked something. I know that when my ex and I in October of 2018, I know when we broke up in October of 2018, the couple days after I accidentally unfollowed him, like on accident, because you know on Instagram you just go to someone's profile and you like accidentally like brush the follow thing and follows. So like I accidentally unfollowed him and then I refollowed him, and that was like embarrassing, and I had to be like, sorry, like whatever. But I feel like I just am so like, not again, knock on wood, but like I'm so careful because I'm just like, how
I am now. That humiliation factor is so
like it probably happened to me a while ago and I like blocked it out, and then since then I've been so hyper vigilant that like
in
it's
the vault.
yeah. But it's weird because then also like my most recent serious ex blocked me after we'd already been friends for longer than we even dated.
Oh, my ex definitely has me blocked on Snapchat, which is so random. Snapchat?
Yeah, like my ex blocked me on Twitter, and I'm like, he doesn't even really go on Twitter.
I mean, who knows why people do what they do when they do, but like, yeah, well, that's what I want to clarify to Lauren too. Like, I don't think I would have ever worked out with my ex. That does not keep me from being on his social media page. So like, I think he's a loser as well.
I'm relieved for every breakup I've gone through, but I'm not curious, like it's
exactly. I will say though, I do want to say that it fades. It definitely does. So anyone listening to this is like, I'm never going to be able to stop stalking my ex. I don't even get on their pages anymore. It's like they're not even a thought. Like,
it's like the kind of thing where it's like I have to remember to do it now.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm subconsciously searching.
Yeah,
right.
Once in a blue moon, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that person, but it will not stay at the level that it's at. So please rest assured that you will move on from stalking them every single day.
But I'm like, yeah, just in reference to the letter, I wonder if there's like different like coping strategies, like quarantine specific, that like would be helpful. I'm like, what would you do if you were just like completely alone and you couldn't meet anyone new?
Right.
Get a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, anything.
There is like a rewards, like you can either reward yourself or punish yourself. That is shown not to work. So I would say do a reward system of, hey, I haven't gotten on this for a day, so I'm going to do something nice for myself. That was somewhat hard for me to adapt because I just knew at the phase that I was in, I was going to look anyway. So in the time that I wasn't looking, anything that was posted, like I would have been going back to look at it. So that is kind of hard, but I think when you get to a point where you're starting to care a little bit less, try to maybe like implement those things. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think again, I think it naturally does fade. Mm-hmm. And I think like sometimes being really intense and stalking like a ton and like stalking yourself out can sometimes be ineffective.
Oh, I've done that. That's great.
Yeah. Where like, yeah, you're stalking the same person over and over again. Like you said, they don't really post that much. Like guys never post. There's never anything to look at. Like eventually you just get sick of it.
Well, that's so hard. And I think I've dated so many people that they get a new girlfriend like right after me, like for example, my most recent one. Yeah. And that's super hard to see like but it's almost kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid. It's because it's like you said, you're looking for these clues. You're like, have they moved on? Have they moved on? And then you get your answer. Like, yeah, they did. But honestly though, like, I will say I do kind of am like, I want to be proven right that it doesn't work out between the two of them. So that might be why I keep looking. Like, I'm like, oh, have the pictures been deleted yet? Like, it's like,
I think
Actually, this is so true.
yeah.
I think for me, I think that's a big part of it is it's like, okay, like, well, if their relationship ends really fast, like, then they were the problem or whatever.
Right. You want to kind of be proven right with that.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, I don't know. And I've also, I think for the most part, it's like, I'll have like a new boyfriend. It's been that I've had a new boyfriend pretty soon. But I think more and more I'm like realizing like, oh, you can really just be wrong for each other. Like sometimes it's like, because I realized that with my last ex where it's like, I don't really think he's like a dick or like a bad person at all, really. Like just think like we weren't together.
Right.
And so also like realizing that or like coming to that conclusion and being like, oh, like actually I think he is a lot better with his new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is a nice thing to think too.
Actually, now that you talk about it, I realized that I had my first ex to get engaged. And I did stalk once they got engaged. And I feel like I didn't care at all until they were engaged, you know?
Well, because it's like a step that they took with that they didn't take with you or whatever.
Which
like,
is great. I'm so thrilled that we did not take that. Like, thank you so much. So happy for you. But I definitely went on a little bit spiral.
Something you talk about a lot are your exes moving on to younger girls. And I find that so interesting because my ex moved on to someone much younger than me. No, I want to say I do truly feel like this, and this might not be right. I think it doesn't really matter what age you are. You can be mature, you cannot be mature. But I will say when I was 21 or 22, I don't feel like I could defend myself from toxic behavior as much as I can now. And I let guys walk all over me. And I think that is part of why that happens. But I would
I don't think I even realized what toxic behavior was. Like I literally look back on like dating when I was moving to LA and breaking up with my college boyfriend and like dating a bunch when I was 22 years old and like dating so many weird guys in their 30s who were like on hindsight so creepy. Like it's just like really funny to realize like, and I was 22, like I wasn't even like that young and I was still really like just getting so like I hate to say it, but like played by these like dumbass fucking guys who like now I'm like, oh, like it took a year of like learning and to be like, oh, I get it. Like I get what you're doing and this you're like an awful person. But it takes like dating a lot of those kind of guys to like realize what's happening.
Yeah, and to be able to properly be like, you're not going to do that to me. Because I think when you're younger, it's like, yeah, and then especially dating a little bit older when you're younger, you know, I feel like people always say to me like, oh, don't waste your time on guys in their 20s. And I have had like, you know, I have wasted a lot of time on guys in their 20s, but a fuckboy is a fuckboy. Like it's like they're not going to age out of that. Like
I think
it's
either like you're a shithead or you're not, and like
right.
it doesn't matter what age you are. But I think that there's a very specific kind of like shithead that's like 30 to 35 that specifically does target girls who are like, you know, 22 years old, like 21, 22 years old, because it's easier to not be that nice to them.
Right. And they're going to boost their ego and make them feel better.
And ignoring any consequences. And I think like that's it's a very interesting thing to like, and people kind of get mad at me sometimes for calling it out because I think people are like, oh, well, you're taking like autonomy away from like girls who are that age who like are technically like legal adults and like capable of thinking for themselves. And it's like, I'm never talking about girls. I'm talking about like guys who go for those girls. Like it's not about girls.
That's such a good point. Cause I feel like when my ex started dating someone new, like it was like, oh, well, you're prettier, you're this and you're that. And like my one friend, like she was like, yeah, you're pretty, but she's pretty too. She doesn't look like a cow. Like it's like, and like, I can't fault her for falling for the same actions that I did. She's just, you know what I mean? Like he's got her caught in this web too. And like, that's not her fault. And like, you can't hate on someone because like they're attracted to the same person as you. Like you felt like
exactly, like you, if anything, like you understand that person more, like you probably have more in common with that person than you have in common with like most people. And so it's like it's just it's really like I'm never ever hating on like any girl or whatever. I just like am like, oh, we should continue to be suspicious of guys who are like trying to date girls who are a lot younger than them, because a lot of times they're doing that so they can get away with like not being that nice to them.
I would just say, I feel like when you're younger, you're like, oh, look at me with my old mature boyfriend, and everyone's looking on like, bitch, you thought.
Like yeah, no, everyone's, oh God, like I feel so sorry for that girl. Like literally, like it's so funny to like the cognitive dissonance that you have when you're in the situation versus when you're looking at the situation.
Okay, well, actually, speaking of that, we talked about this in the first episode. How old was he, Lauren? 42? I was talking to a 42.
He was 45. No?
He's 42.
Okay.
But okay, my friend did put this into perspective for me, because I was on this like path, Dana, where I was like, I need to date older men and they're more mature, which we all know is not true, not necessarily true. And then she was like, imagine what his age range was on Hinge to be able to find you. And I was like, that is a very good point.
When I was like I realized my ex, like when we broke up, I realized that his age range was 18. And we were like, this was after we broke up, and we were talking about, I like asked him if he was like dating, like I was just genuinely curious. And I was like, oh yeah, who have you gone on dates with? And he like mentioned that he like went on a date with a 20-year-old. And I was like, well, what's your age settings? And he was like 18. I'm like, no. I'm like, you need to change it.
Well, isn't that so funny? Because I feel like I have a 1 year younger than me as my range. And I feel like that's even pushing it, because I'm like, they are not mature. It's like just crazy, the contrast of like the age range.
Since I was on the apps, I think my age settings were always like 25 to 31 or something, like always.
Yeah, it's just insane, like just the difference between what guys and girls go after.
It's really crazy. It is crazy to realize that guys like want a girl who like doesn't know how they should be treated. Like that is just so wild to me, that like that is what a lot of guys are looking for.
Yeah,
that's so scary.
Consciously, like that's what they want. It's like really, it blows me away. Like
it's very disheartening if you think about it for too long. So
like the amount of times I've had to like directly ask to be treated like a person.
That's what we really liked your one tweet recently about. I think you mentioned it, Lauren. It was the one
I love all your tweets. I think you're so funny.
Yeah.
Which one was it that I really?
The one that you've let people that aren't your boyfriend like treat you or something. Like, what was it?
Oh, I've let other guys be condescending. I've never cheated on anyone, but I've let other guys be condescending to me. Yeah. Like,
which is like something that I usually reserve for my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dana, it was amazing having you on today. Please tell people where they can find you and find all your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Dana D Only, and then on Instagram at Hottest Dana, and then on TikTok also at Hottest Dana.
I saw you just made a TikTok, and you're very inspiring for that, because I've been scared to venture into that platform.
Yeah, I've just been like doing tweets on TikTok because I realized so many people were going viral on TikTok with my tweets, and I was like, oh fuck, I gotta get on that.
Yeah, it's awesome, and your roller skating stuff, it's all amazing content.
Thank you.
All right.
Yay, well, thank you so much. That was such a good conversation.
I know, I love her.
She's so funny.
She's so funny. She's so relatable. You guys should definitely give her a follow. At the very least, check out her tweets because they are just amazing.
And the podcast. I'm loving the podcast.
Her podcast is great too. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us. Stay tuned for our episode next week. It's going to be great.
It's going down in the DMs.
It sure is. Bye, guys.
Bye.